Welcome to your virtual lecture with Access Group Training for Activity 1 of Manage Budgets and Financial Plans. The first assessment question is, why should organisations collect, file and maintain accurate financial records? Think about your own personal financial situation. Is it important that you know how much money you have coming in and how much you are spending? What could happen if you don't keep track of this? You may not need to keep actual physical records just for yourself, but you still need to have an idea of your personal financial situation. For most people, their financial situation determines what decisions they make about what they do, where they go, and what they buy. If you think about that in terms of an organisation, why do they need to have accurate financial records? The reasons are the same. The initial few pages of the e-learning guide will give you an understanding of this and assist you to answer this question. Question 2 for Activity 1. What are the expectations of managers and supervisors in relation to budget or financial plans? If you owned an organisation and employed managers and supervisors to control the day-to-day operations, what would you need from them to understand whether or not your organisation was operating successfully? Would you want to know what the level of production is and what is being required in regard to resources to achieve that level of production? Your managers and supervisors would need to understand what the organisation is trying to achieve, what level of output, quality and standard of services or products you expect as the owner of the organisation. How would you ensure that they had this understanding? What sort of processes would they need to be involved in so they can perform as you would expect them to? In addition, there are rules and legislation that organisations must adhere to. Think about how managers and supervisors might be able to prove that the organisation is complying with these requirements. Again, the first few pages of the e-learning guide will provide you with some information to respond to this question. Question 3 for Activity 1. What are the reports that can be used for financial planning in an organisation? Regardless of the organisation, how big or small it is, or what industry it is part of, there are some standard financial reports that will help the organisation determine its financial position and dictate its decision-making into the future. Toward the end of Part 1, you will find some information about the different types of reports. To gain a deeper understanding about what each of these reports are, refer to Chapter 17 of your textbook, Coal Management Theory and Practice. Question 4 for Activity 1. What is the process for preparing budgets or other financial plans? What thought process do you undertake when you are tackling a project or have a goal? Think about if you decided you wanted to have a white Christmas. What steps would you need to take to achieve this goal? You would need to have a plan, research and collect information about where you might be able to go, how to get there, what you would need, like money, passport, etc. Preparing budgets or other financial plans requires the same thought process. What needs to be done to put a plan like this together? In the middle section of Part 1, you will find some information on how to do this. Questions 5 and 6 for Activity 1. What two forms of budgeting might be used, and which form of budget allows changes to be made? For these two questions, as we did earlier, have a think about your own personal financial situation. Are you someone who knows exactly what your income will be for a fixed period, say the next month? And do you know what your fixed expenses are, like rent and food, petrol, electricity, phone, etc.? If you know these things, you would also know how much, if any, money you have left over to spend on other things. Or you may not be sure of what income you will be getting for the next month. Therefore, your spending might depend on how much you earn. This is budgeting. There are many different ways in which you can budget. For organisations, there are two basic types of budgets. In the middle of Part 1 in the e-learning guide, you will find what these are and the differences between them. Once you gain this understanding, you will be in a position to answer questions 5 and 6. Question 7 for Activity 1. Explain how contingency plans work. Have you ever had a well thought out plan in place and then something happens that changes your plans? You might be planning a trip with a friend and have based your costs on shared accommodation, and then your friend pulls out of the trip. You might be paying off a loan and then lose your job, which changes your ability to make the repayments. What could you do in the planning phase to be able to deal with these unexpected occurrences? The same thing happens in business. An organisation may have all its plans in place for what it is going to achieve, how it's going to do it, and what resources are required to achieve its goals and objectives. But sometimes unexpected things can happen, like a competitor opens up next door and sells the same products you are selling at half the price. This is difficult to counter if you haven't got some sort of plan in place. While not everything that might happen can be anticipated, it is good to be open to the possibility that these things can happen and changes need to be made. Toward the end of Part 1 in your e-learning guide, you will learn about contingency plans and how they work. Question 8 for Activity 1. Why should team or work group members be actively involved in designing and developing contingency plans? To answer this question, imagine you own a business and you have 20 employees working for you. Some of those people are salesmen, some look after the administration of the business, and some undertake other roles like marketing, etc. What benefits might be gained by having them involved in contingency planning? And on the flip side, what might happen if you have a contingency plan that your employees are not aware of or weren't a part of the planning process? How would they feel and how effective will they be in implementing the plan? In the final pages of Part 1 of the e-learning guide, you will find valuable information about the contingency planning process and the importance of involving team members. You should now be ready to go ahead and answer the questions for Activity 1.